Every book has a moment before the page. A decision, a risk, a story worth telling. This is Authors After Action. Conversations with authors about the journey, the work, and the lessons learned along the way.
Welcome, everybody, to Authors After Action. I'm Don. Today, we have got Tracy Smith. Tracy didn't plan to reinvent her life at 49. She simply booked a one-way flight to Iceland after realizing she no longer belonged to the life she'd built. That leap became the heart of the memoir, The Purpose of Getting Lost, and a message that resonated with women everywhere. You don't find yourself by staying put. You find yourself by getting lost on purpose. Her journey across Iceland, Norway, Ireland, the Middle East, and South Africa weren't escapes. They were acts of courage after divorce, burnout, loneliness, and multiple surgeries. Along the way, Tracy broke lifelong patterns of people-pleasing and learned that belonging is something you build, not something you're given. Today, she shares honest, funny, deeply human stories that remind listeners it's never too late to choose yourself. Welcome to the show, Tracy.
Oh, Don, thank you so much for having me. I'm so excited to be here.
Yeah, I think you and my listeners have got a little bit in common. I traveled quite a bit of the Middle East, probably for different purposes, but
Okay.
most of my listeners are veterans. I'm retired Army, so yeah, Middle East was a pretty common stomping ground. I never got Ireland.
I definitely have some unusual spots that I have been to. I've only checked out the Middle East once, Abu Dhabi and Dubai and Doha. But I have, some other spots that you or your listeners may have been to as well.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, why don't we dive a little bit into it and I know I said it a little bit in your intro, but kind of break down what is it that brought you to writing?
So I have a full-time job, and for the past, probably for most of my adult life, I haven't really felt satisfied in the jobs that I've had, right? Like I have a career. I have a career and I make a lot of money, and at one point I was teaching, and now I do finance, and it was there, but I really am not really sure who I was. Like I'm kind of like working this job, and I'm kind of promoting, and I'm going and going. And so a few years ago, really just being so uncertain with who I was, I took that trip, the first one to Iceland.
Mm-hmm.
And somewhere along the way, so like initially I was starting to do kind of like travel logish writing on Facebook. I would share, hey, I did this and it was great. About, I don't know, maybe 6 months into the trip, it wasn't that trip, but 6 months into traveling, I started to realize, I was like, well, I'm getting a little bit more out of this than just these trips, right? These are not just travel logs. I'm not just going to see the newest and best thing. And so I found that my writing, when I was sharing, started to become a little bit more reflective and less travelogish. Or I would start kind of putting things together that I noticed, or moments that were kind of like unusual to me and that I wanted to think more about. And so then I would have people on Facebook, friends, family, people I didn't know, say, you should write a book. And it really started because I chased down a rabies shot in Chicago back in 2024. And I was telling my niece about this story of how I chased down this rabies shot, and it's really it's in both an indictment on the healthcare system, but also just a really funny story of chasing down a rabies shot. And I was telling my niece about it one day, and she says, you know what, Aunt Trey, you should get on TikTok and learn how to crochet and tell your stories. She's like, because you got really great stories. Well, I went and I bought crochet and needles, and I bought yarn, and I was like, okay, this is what I'm going to do. And then I realized, I was like, I can't crochet. It did not matter. I was trying so hard. I wanted to learn how to crochet. So instead I decided, like, I was learning though that I could write. Like I was
Mhm.
I was figuring out that the things that I was saying also resonated with people. And so I finally decided that maybe TikTok and crocheting was not really my forum, and that perhaps writing these stories down and putting them out there for people to read was a better path. So that's kind of how this project got underway. And then I downloaded 3 years worth of Facebook posts and decided I was going to write a book.
Wow. You are definitely the first author that I've ever said that said, yeah, I journaled. I just pulled all my Facebook posts down and compiled a book.
Well, Don, let me tell you, because it's even better. Because not only did I just download all my Facebook posts and be like, voila, I've got a book, I actually sent it to an editor thinking, like, hey, I got a book. And I really did. I was so silly. I mean, I really did. I thought I had a book. I thought I was like, oh God, I got a book. I've got, I don't know. I had like 180 pages. I don't know, 100,000 words or something. I had a book. I was certain of it. And
Yeah.
then my editor, he's the same editor who edited my dissertation, because he was the only one I could really find. And because I knew nothing about writing. Like, but mind you, I knew nothing about writing. So I didn't even know how to find an editor. So I went to my dissertation editor and I said, hey, Russ, can you please help me out? I need somebody to help me edit this book. And he read it and he was like, well, that was it. God bless him.
Why does everything have all these dates on it?
Yeah, God bless him. He stuck with me through the developmental phase of, he gave me all these homework assignments and I was like, I'm done with school, Rush, you're giving me homework. But he gave me all these homework assignments that were like, oh, who are you writing for? And what is the message? And I've learned all these new words about things like, what is the arc? What is the spine of your story? All these things that I really had no idea. I mean, really had no idea.
Yeah.
And so then I started to really think about those Facebook posts in the context of who I was at the point when I had downloaded them. And
Mhm.
I knew I was a different person because of this romantic relationship that I had ended. And I no longer felt like I had to be in it. So that's how I knew there was something there. I mean, I did. I
Yeah.
just didn't see it because at first I just downloaded all the Facebook posts and that was it. Isn't that a book? I mean, so that's what I did.
I would have loved to have been a fly on the wall when you sent that to the editor.
Yeah. Oh, he was so kind. I mean, he really was. He was so kind. And, he just looked.
You
Oh,
know,
goodness gracious.
you're not wrong. And what you said earlier really resonated with me because I feel the same way about what you just said about writing as podcasting. For me, I did 20 years in the military and got out. I went in the military as a young kid and came
Mhm.
out as a complete different person. And
Mhm.
the only thing that I thought I knew was I wanted to own my own business. And,
Right.
I picked a great place to retire, just a horrible place to find a job. So I said, well, let me create one. And I just created a business and started a trucking company.
Okay.
And I was miserable. I hated it. You know, um, COVID came around and I closed the business and then I went into corporate America, and I
Mhm.
said, well, I'll just do what everybody else does. I'll go get a job. And I absolutely hated that too.
Right.
But I did not feel like me. And when I found podcasting, I found me. I found the new me that I like. And everybody that I meet, the writings, the conversations,
Mhm.
a lot of my guests are not even just guests. They reach out to me, and I've got a guy that I've never met personally, but he reaches out to me about StreamYard advice, and I've just met all these cool people, and
Right.
I think that kind of is similar to what you're saying. That happened is you found the new you, and
Mhm.
you found something that resonated with you. You were just now in this developmental stage of how do I put it all together? I,
Right.
I've got the bold, I got the alphabet soup. Here's all my letters. How do I
Hmm.
put this out there? So after you got through and you and the editor and everybody are working together, how did that process come together? As far as the book, when you started doing this homework, I assume the developmental started happening and you realized who you're writing for and who the author really is and the messages that you're trying to get across.
Yeah, like those. So the homework assignment, one of the first homework assignments he gave me, there were 3 questions, and I think I had to give like 6 words about what the book was about. And I actually skipped question 1 and 2, and I went to 3 because 3 was the easiest one. We all do that when we take exams. And
Hmm.
3 was, who are you writing for? And so I sat with it for a minute. And at first I had like a small paragraph. I was kind of like, oh, I'm writing for like, middle-aged women who want to travel. I don't know. It was really pretty. I didn't, it's not that I wasn't putting effort into it, but I wasn't really certain. So
Yeah.
then I started, I really sat with the question for a while because it's kind of what I like to do. I kind of like to ask questions and then I sit with them. And the next thing I know, I had 2 pages of who I was writing for. And I was describing not just women who were like, 40 to 60 years old who like to travel. The next thing I know, I was describing like a housewife who is at home and has not figured out how to say yes to herself yet, whether that's just watching her favorite TV show at night or
Yeah.
going for a walk instead of mopping a floor, right? So I started to realize there are all these women in my life that I know that, I know there's a lot of women who love their lives and they're so happy with them and they wouldn't change anything. But I also know there's a lot of women out there who maybe they don't realize that there's something they want to change about their lives today. And it's interesting, Don, because today I had a conversation with a friend of mine and I had texted her because she read my book and she said, I wanted to reassure her because there's a chapter about friendship and how I felt like I didn't fit in. And so she might have known or might have thought that it was about her. And I texted her because I wanted her to know it wasn't about her. And I said to her, I says, God, I wish I could be like you. You're so fun and you're engaging and everybody loves to be around you and you're always happy and smiling. And she texted me back in capital letters and she says, I'm so lonely. And I was like, oh my God. Like, so there are all these people that we meet in our daily lives and we just don't even realize it. So that
Wow.
2 page response that I ended up, and then after I wrote the 2 page response of who my target audience was, I then was able to go back to the other 2 questions, which one of them was, what are 6? I think he asked me to put down 6 words that I thought the book would be about. And that's when those 6 words then came to me, things about belonging and identity, like who am I? Who was I? Who did I want to be? Who was I all these years pretending? All these things started to really kind of come together. And that's how I found the spine of this book. Another word I did not know back when
Hmm.
I asked that author and downloaded Facebook. Um, I didn't know that. But that's how I figured out that's what that was
Yeah.
by that exercise of who am I writing for. It was probably the best thing. I mean, he's a great editor and he got me through a dissertation, but definitely the best thing that he could have asked me was to do that one question right there.
Right. Yeah. I think it's awesome because so many times on this show when we start, it's, especially on the fiction side, right? The person came up with an idea and they wanted to tell a story.
Mm-hmm.
And maybe they're passionate about that story, but it's not like this where it's life changing,
Right.
you know? Um, and I think not only did you find the purpose of your book, but in those homework sessions, you found a little bit of yourself and a little bit of what's going on and your purpose, which pushed the whole project.
Yeah, absolutely. So, um, the book went through 3 rounds with 3 different editors. I had the developmental editor, then I had pulled in another editor who was recommended to me, um, by a friend, a colleague at work. And then I had a third editor who was completely an unknown person who I found off of a platform. And all three of them, but through that process, just through the editing process alone, at one point I realized this book was kind of like a love letter to myself,
Okay.
because while I was traveling, all those years of traveling, all these things were happening to me, right? Like I was having all these really great experiences, and I was learning about myself, but I couldn't really put my finger on it. It wasn't like I knew, like, oh gosh, Tracy, you went to Thailand and you realized that you met some people here, or you went out on a date and you found this about you, or you found out that you needed to rest and you took advantage of it. Like I didn't, that stuff didn't happen as I was traveling. It was
Hmm.
when I started really going through the editing process on the book that I started to believe in myself again, because I was like, wow, Tracy, you absolutely have changed. Like I remember trying to explain it to that partner that I was in that romantic relationship with. And when we first broke up, I felt like I was sad. And
Hmm.
then like about 6 months down the road to him, about the 6 months down the road, I said, I wasn't sad. I said what had happened was I had changed so much during the course of the year, that when we were dating, that when we first started dating, I said, this is what I want. That by the time we broke up, I knew that that was not really what I needed it wasn't what I needed anymore,
Right.
right? Like I was kind of like, I'm this new person, and I couldn't quite put my finger on why. And it wasn't really until I got through that editing process that I started to, or was in that editing process, that I started to really realize, to be like, oh, that's why. Like it
Yeah.
was like these light bulbs were going off in my head, because all of a sudden I started realizing that, you know, you are a different person, and I'm still that other person, but I'm still this new person too.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's an incredible experience. I would highly recommend it for anybody.
You got you after this episode, you know how many people are gonna, I mean, we're probably gonna shut Facebook down with all these people out there downloading Facebook to, I got a book too.
Right? They all think they have a book, but let me tell them, first they have to feel like they don't fit in anywhere, and then maybe, because I mean, the story really starts so many years ago. Back in when I'm 10 years old and not fitting in. So
Yeah.
hey, guys, don't download Facebook right now.
You know, it's what you're saying makes perfect sense to me, right? And I have another show called The Healing Side, and it's more about mental health and stuff like that. And what you just said really does make sense, because there's so many times that we, and I'm not trying to get woo woo or step on people's beliefs, but
Mhm.
you come and you learn these lessons, and then as you transition through the lessons learned, you find out on the learning side, hey, I don't need that stuff no more. I have moved
Mhm.
on. I learned that lesson, and I'm ready to move into that new chapter. And
Right.
so just like a book, as that book progresses, people progress.
Right.
And I think, that is for centuries has been a great way for people to learn, because you get those snapshots of, I resonated with the main character at this point, and as the book goes on, that you and that person have different thoughts and feelings and everything else. One part that I want to dive into, and I don't mean to go back a little bit, but I do wonder, what was the purpose when you went on these trips that you had? You bought a one-way plane ticket instead of a round trip plane ticket.
Well, well, it started as a round trip ticket to Ireland. I mean, that's what it started as, because in like February, and I was notorious for like I because I always put my kids first. I was kind of notorious for making plans and then being like, no, I can't go on them because my kids have something, right? We have a cheer, track, baseball. Maybe I just have to be mom tonight because nobody else is here. So,
Right.
that's who I was. And I accepted that role, and I knew that that's who I was. So my friends, we were out at a bar restaurant one night, and they're like, we're going to Ireland. Now, I'm sure they thought when I said I want to go, and I booked that round trip ticket to Ireland on that night, like, I mean, literally 10 minutes after they said it, I'm sure they thought I was going to cancel. I'm pretty sure I probably thought I was going to cancel as well.
Mhm.
What ended up happening though was about, so that might have been January or February. I'm not exactly sure when I bought that ticket. But then what ended up happening was by the summertime, somebody had put it into my head that maybe you should go somewhere else. Like there's other places to explore. And I
Yeah.
started to think, well, yeah, why I'm going to Ireland. And I had all these vacation days. I had never been taking them because, I had to work. And I was fortunate to work a job that was flexible enough to let me have time off, but I had a huge bank of vacation days. And so somebody had said, this conversation about, oh, you should go somewhere else, or have you ever been here? He actually said, have you ever been here? And I was like, no, I want to go there. Like I didn't even know where it was. Like I mean, like, I had to look at the map and be like, wait, where is that country at? And is it even close? I mean, and I'm not even joking when I say it. I was going to Ireland, and when I booked this add-on trip, which the first add-on was to Copenhagen and Norway, I had no idea how close they were to each other. Like, I mean, I'm like another, just like, I'm like just another geographically challenged
Mhm.
American who I didn't really know. I was just kind of like, oh, well, they're in Europe. Cool. So what happened, I, I canceled that round trip. I had this flight from Ireland, and then I ended up booking another flight to go to Norway and Copenhagen.
Okay.
Well, then I got a wild hair up my butt, and probably about a week before I was due to leave, maybe 10 days. I don't think it was more than 10 days. It was probably closer to a week or less. Something came across my Facebook feed and it was like Iceland. I was like, okay. so, so next thing you know, I have like one-way tickets every which way. I have a one-way ticket to Iceland. I have a ticket from Copenhagen. I have this round trip ticket from Ireland. I have a ticket to Iceland. I have a ticket from um Norway, from Oslo to Ireland. And then I still had another ticket home, one-way ticket home from Ireland back to the US. So I had tickets everywhere. I don't even know what I was doing. I'm lucky the airlines didn't like ban me from flying them, because obviously I was skip lagging all over the place. Um so it wasn't a true like just go to Iceland, but it really was this, I'm just getting on an airplane and I don't know where I'm going. I don't know what I'm doing, but I'm going. And it just kind of evolved from what was supposed to be an 8-day group trip around Ireland to a 3-week trip that had stops in Iceland, Copenhagen, and then throughout Norway. I spent, maybe about 10 days in Norway or something like that. So that's kind of not as crazy as just buying a one-way ticket. But I will tell you, I did buy a one-way ticket to California right after I graduated from college, and told my family the day before I left, hey, I'm moving to California tomorrow. I'm going to California. And they said, when are you coming back? And I'm like, I don't. It's a one-way ticket. And I've never went back. I went from New York to California, and I've been back to visit, but I never went back to live. And so, yeah. So maybe, you know, I've
So,
done crazy things.
but that's good. I mean, that's life. That's living,
That is living.
and it is unfortunate in today's world that not more people look at it that way and do it.
Yeah, it's
You
a
know,
privilege. I think it's, and not to interrupt you, but I think it's a privilege to have been able to do that. And I recognize that this isn't something, the way that I went about it, it's probably not even a way that I should have went about it. I mean, frankly, I couldn't afford it, but I did. And, that's probably a whole nother podcast for, Sally or whatever, Susie or whatever her name is. Susie, is this a good decision or something? I'm sure. But the point is I understand that I had privilege enough to go do this.
yeah.
And not everybody has that kind of privilege to be able to go do that.
Well, for me, I mean, that was one of the selling points for the military.
Hmm.
Is the recruiter told me you're going to get to see the world. He just left out the part about the third world. you
Yeah.
I'm picturing all these great places.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, we have never invaded anything like Spain or Ireland.
Well, I mean, yeah, no, true. And I agree. Yeah, I mean, you only went to brown spots and by that I mean the ground, right? Like, so
Yeah,
it's my least favorite places I have discovered to go are ones that are sandy. I much prefer the grass and the greenery.
yeah, yeah. I mean, I spent time in Iraq, Afghanistan, and Bosnia, and I promise you, I mix sand in all those places because once you get sand in something, it just doesn't come out.
It doesn't come out. Yeah, that's why I hate the beach.
Yeah, me too.
Just I don't, the beach. I love the water, but absolutely hate the sand.
Yeah.
But Don, I do want to kind of go back to one thing you mentioned because
Okay.
I do think it's a little important. When you were talking about like we become we progress and we become new people, and
Yeah.
I think that that's absolutely right. But I also want listeners to realize is that it's also okay if you have to relearn lessons, right?
Oh,
Because
100%.
I've learned all these great lessons about community and finding community in small groups and among strangers and in places where I would not have thought to look for it. But it doesn't necessarily mean that I still can apply that in my daily life, right?
Right.
And so in this book, that's part of what I'm doing. I'm really working through like, yeah, maybe I learned community way back when I went to, Ireland with a group of friends or whatever, but I still had to learn it again when I went to to Vietnam to go visit my friend for the Lunar New Year. So I think it's really important for listeners and readers to understand that it's okay that we have to learn our lessons again. The
Yeah.
value is understanding that you're learning a lesson and trying to learn from it and saying, what did I get out of this, no matter how small it is.
Yeah. I think that's one part about um, people misconception failure for negativity, and
Hmm.
what they fail to realize is the failure part isn't negative. It's a life
Hmm.
lesson. It's a
It's a
life
life
experience
lesson.
that you can fall back onto so that you don't make the same mistakes again and again. And if you have to make those mistakes again and go back and try to relearn it until it becomes a stuck life lesson and
Hmm.
life experience that you can draw off of, then that's
Right.
what you do. Because the only negative part about that is if you never learn the lesson and you can't draw from that
Right.
experience to
Yeah.
help you move forward.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm working on a piece right now, and I rode a motorbike in West Africa recently. And, it didn't go well.
This episode is brought to you by Barracks Media, where your online presence becomes a real asset. Barracks Media builds professional websites for podcasters, creators, authors, and small businesses who are ready to be taken seriously. Not templates, not cookie-cutter pages, real platforms built to grow with you. Whether you're launching a podcast, promoting a book, or building a brand, your website should work as hard as you do. We design sites that convert listeners into followers and followers into clients. Visit barracksmedia.com and turn your idea into a home on the web.
Spoiler alert, it didn't go well. And in that experience, I had to kind of decide about like I gave up. It didn't go well, so I quit.
Mhm.
And I had to make a decision about was I quitting or was there some kind of lesson in that quitting, right?
Yeah.
And so the piece that I'm currently working on is about the lesson I got actually out of what, was quitting, and instead of me quitting, really I was just letting go. And
Yeah.
so I agree with you. You have to kind of figure out what is the lesson that comes from these things. And then you move forward to the next one. And maybe it's similar, or maybe it's not. Maybe it's something different, or maybe 5 years or 10 years from now, you'll learn that lesson again, because, we need refreshers. Just because 9 times 9 equals 81 today doesn't mean 10 years from now you can pull it from your memory that quickly,
Right.
because you haven't used it in that long. I mean, I know that's a simple way to think
Well,
about it, but
I think also sometimes those lessons that you're learning, there's a time frame that you're supposed to learn those lessons. Right.
mhm,
And it's pointless to learn a lesson when you're 6. That's
right,
going to be a life experience that you need to pull off of when you're 66.
right,
You know, we're just not made that way to where we can pull that stuff, like you just
right,
said, in that space. So sometimes you're ahead of yourself. You're trying to learn this lesson and you have to go back and keep relearning it because it's not time for you to pull from that life experience yet.
right.
So I do think you're absolutely right. And I want to dive back a little bit into your book, because I know we're getting closer to the time frame. But when you wrote this book, right?
Uh-huh.
What were some of the things that you struggle with? Obviously, you're now learning from the beginning, and you do got some great help that's coming. And I'm sure there was parts where he shoved it back to you and said, "Okay, this is what I need you to do." Um,
Right.
what was it that about the whole process that you was not expecting when you decided, "Hey, we're gonna move forward with this book"?
Yeah, so there were two pieces. One of them was shortly thereafter, my editor had me rethinking about the spine and everything, and then I rewrote the book, and I was like, "Oh, I got a great book here. It's wonderful." I didn't know. Well, I had been on Facebook, of course, again, and all of a sudden a message pops up, beep, beep, beep. Hey, I hear you're writing a book. And of course, it's one of those vanity publishers.
Mm,
I'll leave them nameless, but what I didn't know at the time is that that's what they were.
yeah,
And because at this point in time, I didn't know, I wasn't even really considering myself a writer yet, right? I just knew I was putting this book together. And so I didn't know about like the various Facebook groups. I didn't know about all these platforms. I didn't know about like different groups that I could join, like professional organizations that I could join. And so I signed up and I gave them a whole lot of money because
yeah,
I thought, and I remember telling a friend being like, "Oh my God, I found a publisher and it didn't even cost me much money." I like it cost me, and I was so proud of myself because I was like, they're going to do my marketing, they're going to do my editing, they're going to do my graphics. And the first clue when I got the graphics back, I was kind of like, hmm. And I liked it, but I didn't love it. But then over the summer, they got really pushy. They started getting really super pushy with me and all this other stuff. So then I'm still not really understanding. And they say to me, "We can help you with your copyright." And I was like, "Oh, okay, great. I guess this is something I need to do and whatever." So I send them more money for copyright. Now I'm still not knowing that really I haven't figured out what's going on. It wasn't until they sent me back an edited version of the book that they had been pushing on for me for like months, and it was horrible. I mean, horrible. There was stuff that had been inserted, there were deletions, there was text that had been that was repetitive. I
yeah.
demanded my money back. I was able to get it. I think I'm fortunate because
Wow.
obviously yeah, I threatened them with my credit. Like I was like, I'm gonna go to my credit card company. They are going to give me my money back. And so I got my money back. Um and then I pulled it. I canceled the contract. By the way, they still send me messages and I'm too polite to actually block them because I'm just so polite I can't. So
Yeah.
that was part of probably one of the hardest parts is learning about these vanity publishers and staying away from them because they're not really going to do the work for you.
No.
The hardest part about my daily writing is I live in my head a lot. And so I think through words when I try to put words on paper, I'm looking for perfection, right? I'm sitting there and I'm trying to write and I want the right word right that minute rather than just putting the thoughts on paper in a mumble jumble and trying to tossle with them because the word salad is just it doesn't I can't organize it conceptually into my head. So I have to have it kind of in a really tight format just when it gets on paper. And so
Yeah.
for me, that's the hardest part about the writing process, because sometimes I have to be okay with, I wrote a piece the other day and it felt flat. It felt really, really flat. And I couldn't figure out why it felt flat. And I was telling Paige today about it. This piece I wrote, it's really flat. I'm not really sure. So then last night I decided to come at it from a different angle. And I sat down, I wrote it, and I wrote the whole thing. And I was like, oh my God, this is so much. This is what I want to say. Right. And so I allowed myself to, I trusted myself to say, this is not the right piece. This is the piece. And last night when I sat down and wrote it, I didn't worry about the words as they were going onto the paper. I just wrote. And I think that's a really hard thing for people to do, because we're so worried
Yeah.
about the words.
So I want my listeners to focus on what you just said. There's two things that are extremely important.
This show is part of the Barracks Media Network, built by veterans, creators, and storytellers who believe stories change lives. Barracks Media produces podcasts, books, and digital content that amplify voices worth hearing. We help creators launch, grow, and monetize their message without losing their soul. If you've got a story in you, or a show in your head, go to barracksmedia.com and start building something that lasts.
The self-publishing, I call it explosion, has really brought it to mainstream to write books, right?
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Unfortunately, it has also brought people with brilliant ideas of how I can get people to pay me that don't understand how to self-publish, and I will self-publish their book for them
Right.
with very little care of any kind of structure. There's no line editing and developmental editing. There's grammar checking
Right.
and sending it off. And you can't tell the difference. I had a professional published on the show. Her show is going to release, I think, Tuesday. And she even says there's a lot of times when I'm dealing with other agencies, I can't tell if they're a vanity publishing
Right.
house or if they're a traditional publishing company.
Right.
And if she can't, how is the first time author ever going to know?
Right.
The other thing that you said that I think is this is just my opinion. Things are going to change, right? Right now, if somebody writes a book using dominantly AI, you can tell because there's no human structure to it, right? There's no feeling to it. It's perfect as far as grammar, lines, and flow and so forth, but it's kind of missing that sauce, right?
It's flat. They
Yep.
feel they're flat.
And I think as AI gets better, people are going to like those little bit of mistakes and those little bit of things because now they know that the other person that was on that book is a human.
Right.
And they're going to allow themselves to be able to connect to that author better because everything's not structurally perfect, right?
Right. Mm-hmm.
And so I think that a couple years down the road, is the way things are going to be. On my other show, Spirits and Stories, I had a guy that's a big AI guy, and I asked him, what is AI going to do to change for people? And he said, well, when the internet came about, it pulled everybody away from their neighbors. They quit knowing their neighbors, and everybody's on a screen and they're talking back and forth, and everything was great, but we've lost connection with everybody. He said AI is going to bring that back to where everybody is not on a screen. They're going to interact with people outside. And I said, well, how is that? That don't make no sense.
Mm-hmm.
And he said, because that's the only way you're going to know if it's real.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. I had to give my third round editor, so the third round of editing, I took it to, I actually wrote an very detailed style guide for him because I wanted him to understand that there were parts in there that were intentionally not, they were fragments. I because of the
Right.
way I wrote and the way I wanted to tell this story, and I had to tell him that's intentional, don't fix it. And you're right, I think about AI might not necessarily be able to, because they're taught to write in complete sentences, grammatically correct, verb tense always right. And so to be able to show this kind of this movement over here through fragments and sentences, through I kind of like I did a mixture of internal dialogue with present day, with past day, kind of as I'm going through this book. So it allowed me to, it allows us to see the humanness in these stories. It just,
Yeah.
I absolutely agree with you about that.
Yeah. Well, I want to, before we get to the point where we can share where your people can buy your books and follow you, what is some last words or some advice that you would have for, say, a young lady who's deciding that she wants to write a book about how she's feeling and how things are going? What's some advice that you would give them?
Don't download your Facebook feed. Let's start there. It's not a good plan. I think that the biggest piece of advice I could give somebody is to say, know who you are. Like, know the kind of writer that you want to be, right?
Yeah.
And don't apologize for it. Right. So when people read my book, if they're like, oh, she did this or that, da, 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 well, that's not the writer who I am. I'm not going to apologize for the way that this book came together for me and how I put that out there in the world. And I think that know who you are. And I know, like, when you're writing your first book, you might not know exactly who you are, but I think you can have a sense of, oh, this is how I engage with people in my life outside of writing, or these are the things that I like or appreciate. So trust that. You absolutely have to trust it, because otherwise your writing won't feel, it's never going to feel like it's your writing. It will always feel like it's somebody else's, even when you wrote it yourself. I think that's
Yeah.
probably the biggest piece of advice I could give them.
Yeah, I think you're absolutely right, because I think the most important part of being an author is understanding your voice and
Mm-hmm.
not being apologetic for it and not allowing people to take that away from you.
Mm-hmm.
Because for me, all my books, I write a lot about mental health. My first book was about the issues I had from leaving the military and PTSD and all that stuff. And it was wrote for my family. It was a document. It wasn't a book. It was me explaining to my family what I went through, because I never shared it with them.
Right.
And I self-published it because my daughter asked me to publish it. I had no intentions of ever being an author. And a lot of the same stuff that you're talking about, I went through myself. The editing process is, I didn't realize that I was going to have to relive these traumatic events so many times going through the editing process.
Mm-hmm.
And if I had known that, I probably would have chickened out. I'm not going to lie. And, but I did it, and I successfully made it, and I published it. And now I've published several other books in regards to mental health and so forth. But I do it for myself.
Right.
It's my voice. I don't expect them to be bestsellers. I put them out there because I feel good about what I'm sharing and where I've gotten to in my life and the lessons that I've learned. And that's really what those books show, is my self-growth. So I agree with you. Do not be apologetic, and keep your voice, and understand that if people give you criticism, you have choices. You can either feel that it's something worth listening to,
Mm-hmm.
or feel it's something that it's not worth listening to.
Right.
But either way, those are your choices. Don't let people make them for you.
Absolutely. I could not agree with you more. You make a decision about what you're hearing, seeing, reading, whatever, and say, okay, yes or no. And
Yeah.
you keep going on. And yeah, I absolutely agree with you. On a side note, I'm the piece that I'm working on, that I had mentioned, not the one about the motorbike. My brother was also served 28 years in the military, and there's a piece of his time in the military and our relationship in that piece. So when it's finished, I will absolutely share it with you.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And when you get ready to release it, make sure you reach back out. We'll bring you back on, and
I
we'll
will,
talk
for
about
sure.
that book as well too. Well, Tracy, where can people find your books and follow you and experience all these awesome traveling that you're doing?
So we have a couple different places. So I share all of my travel stories at both Tracy Travels Everywhere on Facebook. The one that is Tracy Travels Everywhere all pulled together, as well as one with spaces. They're both me. It's just, Facebook has got some really strange rules about what you can and can't do. So those are me. I also have transitioned a lot of my travel stories to my website where I have a blog, and it's tracysmithauthor.com. But again, if you search for Tracy Travels Everywhere or even Tracy Travels, you will get to the same place. It's a nice, easy way to, hopefully, a nice, easy way for people to remind me. It also kind of shows that when I first started this journey, I thought I was going to be somebody who wrote about traveling and didn't realize that I really was going to be somebody who's writing about identity and belonging and, our place in the world. The book, The Purpose of Getting Lost, can be found on Amazon. It's available in both ebook and print version as well. And if you got Prime, it'll get there really quickly. And so, yeah. And probably the best place if you want to read more of my writing is to go over to Substack, Tracy Smith, PhD. And there I am sharing a lot of special essays and notes about things that I noticed in the world all over the place. And trying to make some sense of those things that I see and notice and how they fit into my life or into other people's lives.
Absolutely. Well, I hope everybody that listens to this, there's no way you didn't get anything out of this episode. There's so much here. As we speak right now, Facebook is removing the download button. So they probably reached out to their attorneys about getting some royalties from her book. But other than that, you also understand the importance of your voice and understanding that it is okay to start the process as one person and finish the process as a whole nother person, and realize that you can love both people. So I hope everybody enjoyed something about this episode. I know I sure did. Make sure that you follow Tracy. Go over to her Substack and follow, subscribe if she's got any subscriptions, and make sure, most importantly, pick up this book and read it. And don't be lazy. Leave a review. It helps all authors. It's important. And I hope all y'all have a great day. Be safe.
You've been listening to Authors After Action, a podcast from the Barracks Media Network. Thanks to our guest for sharing their story, and thank you for listening. You can explore more conversations like this across the Barracks Media Network. We'll see you next time.